Evening all. I'll try and continue from the last video I made on YouTube. So Infiltration did start to trade from the home I'm speaking in now in 1978. But those were the golden years of selling koi. In fact, if anyone had koi for sale in the UK back then, it was no problem for people to make a 500-mile return journey just to see them. And obviously they bought them as well. Now, it was pointed out to me that trading from my home was frowned upon by the local council. And this was exacerbated when coaches full of people, full of koi enthusiasts, turned up outside my home, especially on a Sunday afternoon. Well, it didn't take long for the neighbours to inform the council. And then I received a letter from the council to say they would allow me 6 more months trading from my home. But after that, I'd have to find premises if I wanted to continue trading. Anyway, around that time, I did mention it to one or two of my existing customers. They said, "What you looking for an outlet on a garden centre, which is where most koi were sold from back then?" You know, I said, "No, I need a secure unit, somewhere I can lock the doors on an evening and rest easy that no one was going to break in there and help themselves to my stock." Well, one of these customers, who was a building contractor, told me he'd just bought a company in Goulburn, which I'd never heard of, and the company was an outlet then owned by Intex Yarns, and he told me he was going to turn it into an industrial estate, and said if I wanted to rent one of the buildings, you know, I could have choice of them, and he'd take me over there and show me where it was. Well, it turned out that Goulburn is a village near Haydock in Cheshire. Well, it's just on the outskirts of Lancashire, but technically is in Cheshire. And he took me there one day, although I had no idea where it was. And there were many buildings that were owned by Intex Yarns. So we got the keys for these buildings. He said, just look through the units, and if you want one, I'll rent it to you on a 18-month no rent basis. So I searched around the estate, looked in various units, and finally decided to go for a unit which was, I suppose you could call it a huge Nissan hut, but it had 6,000 square feet of ground space, and it was just a curved roof. And I had little choice, but I took it on. Now, that was in 1981. Now, then I had to kit the unit out, which was quite a daunting task. I had visions of how it should look, and it was truly a big area to fill. It took a year to complete the unit, so it was worth opening, and it was an expense, and it was a huge gamble, because all I would be offering for sale was koi and koi related items. Anyway, after around 1 year of building, which involved bricklayers, plasterers, painters, all manner of things, my funds were running very, very low. I was quite worrying at the time. I'd already decided that when I opened it to the public at a given weekend, that the first day, being the Saturday, I would only allow existing customers to enter the building, and on the Sunday it would be open to the public. So in May 1982 this grand opening took place. I had some friends who were helping me out with customers at the time, but before we opened, the place was brimming with koi. I had something like 8 ponds and one very large pond that were all heaving with koi. I had dry goods on display. It was a sight to behold. All I needed desperately was for people to enter the building and buy some of the items. Well, on the first day, I did advertise this in the BKKS magazine, but on the first day, my regular customers came in, and they did support infiltration and bought items. But it was the second day, the Sunday, where all of the units on the estate were closed for business. They weren't open, so I had the huge car park for visitors, enormous car park, and the car park kept filling up and filling up as customers thronged in to see the unit and the koi and everything that was there. I did overhear someone mention that to another person that it would be best if they wanted to buy koi to buy them now, because they said that within 6 weeks infiltration would go bust. It wasn't a nice thing to hear at the time, but that's actually what happened. Anyway, I had no idea what my take-ins were, and on the Sunday evening after I locked up the store, I drove home with the take-ins, got to my home, and I don't know, I made some beans on toast or something, and started to count the take-ins for the 2 days. I didn't believe the first one, so I counted it again. And then, to make sure, I counted it one more time and came up with the same amount, which was just a shade under £34,000. Now, I don't know what that computed to back in 1982, but it was a tremendous amount of money. I couldn't believe it. It was colossal. So I made out paying slips for it, paying in slips for it to take to my bank the following morning, and paid it all in. And went back to open the shop, and there were more customers waiting. I was amazed. I couldn't believe how much money I was taking in such a short period of time, and it continued. In the end, I'd not been paid for well over a year, so I decided to treat myself. I walked into a local Porsche dealer and asked him to supply me a brand new 911. And after a few days he did. Well, that's all for tonight, and thanks for listening.